We've talked a lot about how to start your own business, but what if you have enough equity or capital to invest? But what if you didn't need money to invest in a business and make money? We're going to answer all of these questions today. Coming up next. I'm Eric Mitchell, and this is To The Point. Today is To The Point Tuesday. We have two amazing entrepreneurs joining us today, talking about their success and how they've done it. Our first guest is going to talk about how he built a successful at-home business after owning a gym. Had to pivot and created his own gym. And then the second is going to talk about how in his young age he was actually able to invest in some amazing capital without using his own money. By using resources and the powers that are out there, he was able to start a successful business at a very young age. 21 is the number that you're looking for. So I'm excited for these two because these two are going to provide so much value to our audience. And I know this is a different show. When we come from celebrities and singing and just amazingness to this is more of a let's talk about what we're doing to discuss what's going on in America. See, we have a lot of people out of work. And my goal is to try to help so many of you. If you're watching and you're out of work or you know somebody out of work, we want to give you the tools to be able to find work or find a way to make income. Because that's the American dream. And entrepreneurship's amazing. So just like myself, I'll give out as much free advice as I possibly can. The great George Bryant, all of his resources are absolutely free. We have two more amazing guests today. They're going to tell you and provide you insight on how they reach their success. Because success isn't reached overnight. You don't climb Mount Everest in a day. I can tell you that. What you have to do is plan for it. And it takes time. This won't get you rich quick. Not by any means. We're not that show. You want that? Go check out Staten Island Joe Exotic. That might be able to help you. His show's on for 2 hours. It airs at the same time as ours. That's where you should go. Because we're not here to tell you how to get rich quick. We're not going to tell you any of that. What we are going to tell you is we're going to give you the tools. We're going to give you the fishing pole and teach you how to fish so you reach success. Because that's our goal here. That's how we bring America back and unite as one. I'm excited for our first guest. He's a good friend of mine and an amazing entrepreneur. So let's welcome to the show Mr. Robby Blanchard. I'm Eric Mitchell, and this is To The Point. And it is To The Point Tuesday, our favorite day where we talk about business, current events, and what's going on in entrepreneurship. So you don't want to miss this. Grab your pen and paper. People who've been on To The Point Tuesday include Sharks from Shark Tank, the great Kevin Harrington. We've had Montel Williams on here. So when we talk about business, we even have Jeremy Leonard who talks about, LinkedIn. And we've had Matthew Bryan Brown talking about YouTube. So today we bring in a business coach. Probably doesn't even like being called a business coach. We have an amazing entrepreneur here, a serial entrepreneur that's going to help you figure out when is the time and how to build your own online business. Because folks, let's face it, we have amazing brands out there that are absolutely killing it. We've had guests on our show like Lucy Mitchell, who represents Zaya, which is an amazing clothing brand. I'm wearing it. You usually see me wearing it on every show. It's an amazing brand line. If you're curious about finding out more about it, there's a link inside the YouTube. But online businesses are seeing not 10x growth, but 100x growth. It's just crazy how COVID-19 has just blossomed with the business. With us not going and having to deal with retail, we could do it online. And e-com is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to clothes. Just look at what Amazon's doing. So let's get to our first guest today, and let's get to the point with my friend and amazing guest, Robby Blanchard. And welcome to the show, Robby. How you doing today?
Eric, thank you so much for having me. I really, really appreciate it, and I'm doing great.
Awesome. As best as we can be doing in 2020, I'm hoping this second half of 2020 is more like the New York Yankees and less like the Oakland Raiders. I'm just hoping that we can have a winning record going into the rest of 2020, because it's not impressed so far.
Not yet.
Not yet. Not like, 2020. I want to have another 20. I'm like, no, 2020, you can kick rocks. So, you're a serial entrepreneur. Obviously, you came up years ago. You owned a gym. You were able to walk away. And so before we get really started here, and like I said in the opening, we were talking about your correct title. Would you like to be known as a coach? What title would you like me to go by? Because I know some of you guys cringe when you hear coach, because we can go on Facebook and see those folks leaning on Lambos like, look at me, and they really haven't done anything.
Yeah.
So what do you prefer for a title, my friend?
Yeah, good question. You know what? I don't really need a title, Eric. I mean, my main thing is I just love helping people succeed. I think that's the number one thing I love to do. That's why I started, way back when as a personal trainer and starting a CrossFit gym was I wanted to help people out. And now that I've kind of transitioned to the online space, that's what I do is I help people have success online. And so, you can call me whatever you want. Doesn't really matter to me. My big thing is I love to help people out and help them succeed,
That's important, and it's good to hear that. I mean, we've had some amazing folks on here. We had David Melsner on, who, of course, I'm sure you know, and David is amazing with his goal to help 1 billion people achieve happiness, right? There's a hell of a goal, right? For a guy who could basically go sit on the sidelines and kick back with a margarita in his hand, he doesn't do it. And that's what I love about all you guys. You guys all have this mentality, and it's not an overnight thing. So let's talk about that. A lot of people come to me, and they talk about guys like you and Bedros and David and, of course, Lewis Howes and, JLD. And they're like, these guys are like overnight successes. And I'm like, zero. You're not even true. None of these guys are overnight successes. I mean, Bedros had to come from a war-torn country, come here, literally go through poverty to reach where Bedros is at today. Lewis Howes, I mean, come on, go on his Instagram and you see geeky Lewis Howes, where you're like, if you would have showed me that picture of him like 10 years ago and tell me 10 years later he's going to be like rock star famous and, we're going to be like, dude, Lewis is the man, I would have been like, no. That dude's going to work at McDonald's. That's where he's headed to. And even you, right? You owned a gym, and now look at you. You're leading the way. One of the biggest, thought leaders out there when it comes to starting an online business. So, I mean, tell us about your struggle to get where you're at. I always love hearing the failure part, which led you to here, or your story that led you to where you're at today, because I'm certain you're not an overnight success. So, how did you get there?
Definitely not. I would say I'm probably a 6 or 7 year overnight success, So I started as a CrossFit gym owner, and basically, I was really good at getting people in shape, but I was really bad at getting people in the door. And so because of that, my business struggled, right? And so, I get to the point where, there was times where I literally had to decide, do I want to pay my rent this month or do I want to buy groceries? Because I couldn't do both. And that was a really, honestly and truly an embarrassing time for me. But I think it was important that I went through that because it forced me to basically overcome and adapt, which is really important in 2020. You have to overcome and adapt because nobody expected this, but here we are and you have to just figure it out, right? And so that's kind of what I did. And so basically I knew that, having my online business was really the next step. And I'm so glad that I took the leap and got out of my comfort zone and made it happen about 5 years ago when I started my online business, because actually, Eric, I still own my CrossFit gym in Massachusetts. And so right now we're not open and we're not able to be open because of everything that's been going on. And thankfully, I have my online business. And because I have my online business, I can still have success. I can still do very well. And it's all because I've been online. Like if I do just a gym owner at this moment, I probably wouldn't be as happy as I am right now talking to you.
I love that you said that because I think that's true, right? There's such a CrossFit gyms, all gym owners. I mean, when we interviewed Bedros, same thing, right? I mean, having to go through what is normally especially in team-based workouts, right? Group-based workouts like CrossFit, like what Bedros does. Those are things that people don't think about. You build off that contact. And I think it's very interesting how people don't think of this. And I think that's why something like Jesus, I can't clear my mouth today. It's amazing. My throat's just like, no, we're not talking. You talk too much, Eric. But my point here is like you look at Peloton, right? Peloton in November was attacked as this horrible business, and CrossFit and all these cycle bars were like, oh, don't support it, they're killing us. And then COVID-19 hits, and who's laughing now? Now everybody, I mean, as a matter of fact, Lululemon just bought Mirror, right? So
yes, they did.
obviously companies see the wave of the future. We're not going to go back to gyms anymore. We've had folks on who talk about even the simple breathing out. You don't even think about where your breath goes. You're not going to wear a mask because nobody's doing high altitude training that wants to unwillingly do a high altitude training. So, I mean, I think it's interesting you talk about gym owners, but let's talk about this.
Yeah.
Let's talk about why now is a good time to start an online business. I keep telling folks this. Anybody we have on, we talk about why. I was saying, to the folks before we came on air together, I rock, Zaya, which is just one brand I'm aware of. I know I have friends doing others that they hopped into literally at the start of COVID, and they're making cha-ching money. Some of them are making more than they made at their old job, which is crazy, just doing e-com, and it's not just retail. So let me ask you, my friend, you're the expert here. I'm just this host who just runs his mouth a lot. Why do you think why would you say now is the time to start an online business?
Well, I think there's several reasons why. I think one of the main reasons is it's no longer business as usual, right? It's like, most people are working from home now. Most people have to do something different, right? Like, what is it, 40 million unemployed in America, right? So there's a lot of things that are happening where, the old kind of, have a 9-to-5 job and do this and do that, like that's kind of been ruffled quite a bit. And so, for me personally, I think having an online business right now is so important. And one of the reasons why there's so much opportunity is because there's been a massive shift and everybody is online now, like one of the main things that I do with my business is we advertise a lot on Facebook and YouTube. And so, typically the average American spends about 58 minutes per day actively on their Facebook. And so now with everything that's been going on with COVID and everything, that number is almost increased by 30 minutes. So Americans are spending about an hour and a half per day actively on Facebook. And so what that tells me is that people are looking for more things to do. They're at home, they're on their computers. And even though they may be unemployed or don't have a job, they're still buying stuff, right? And so just whether to pass the time or they need things, it's just the way it is now. And so there's so many opportunities now for everybody, whether you have a business online or you never had one before online. Now is the perfect time to start because there's so much more demand, and that's where everything is shifting.
So let me ask you this.
Yeah.
And this is well, I don't even know what camera I'm on. I'm on a whole different camera. This isn't going to work. Wow, here we go. This is why we love live. One of the things that I always hear and people are trying to figure out is why suddenly the boom in direct sales, right? Which people have always traditionally kind of poo-pooed on. But Facebook ads are something that I've been very well aware of for years, as of you have, and I see their success. And I know the strength of YouTube, which I'm shocked more people don't use the power of YouTube. And unfortunately, they treat it like a social platform, and it is not a social platform. It's a standalone. I mean, it's almost like having a website with video on it. I mean, that's the way I look at it with SEO, especially with Google leading the way in everything.
Yeah.
Why would you... What do you... I love to hear your answer. What do you think is the cause of the spike in people just crushing it with online business? I mean, what is causing... I mean, where people are unemployed, but they seem to have money and they seem to be spending it. And then people are joining this. So why?
It's a great question. For me personally, like with what I do, because I'm big into affiliate marketing. So essentially what I do is I promote other people's products and I get a commission off of that, right? So and I use a platform called ClickBank, which I'm paid out anywhere from 90 to 100% commission because of the digital product, and that's kind of what I do. And one of the reasons why it crushes still to this day is because I focus on three main categories, and that's like the health niche, that's going to be the wealth niche, and that's going to be the relationship niche. And the reason why that I think those three categories are exploding is because even when times are tough and the economy's down and people may not have a job, like everybody still wants to lose weight, right? Especially now with like everyone's at home, like just eating their face off, right? I think you need to, the weight loss industry is huge, right? The relationship industry is huge. The wealth industry is huge. And so, really dialing in on those types of niches are really, really important because it allows you to, continue to have success, continue to scale up your online business, continue to still make money no matter what's going on in the world. And I think that's one of the big things that I teach, obviously, my students to have success with. But yeah, at the end of the day, it comes down to there's more eyeballs online right now. People are on their computers, they're at home more, and they're also in one place more. I know that usually, on a regular year, people are out and about more, right? They're not really in front of their computer as much. But now, because people have been forced to be at home, they have nothing else to do but to be on their computer. And that's a captive audience for us as an online business owner. And so that's a huge opportunity. So that's really the big reason why, is because people are just on their computers more. And that allows for more opportunity for me as an entrepreneur.
So this leads to the next thing. Okay, this sounds like a great idea. I love it myself, right? How do you get started? You're talking about affiliate marketing. Let's kind of dive down where somebody's sitting here watching us right now, and they're like, okay, totally going to do this. If I can make real money, I don't have to depend. I mean, obviously, unless something changes in the next few weeks, I'm not on unemployment, so I don't know. I've heard that there's an additional almost $700 thrown on top of unemployment checks. That runs out. For a lot of Americans, and I shouldn't be laughing about it, but hopefully it causes some of them actually to return to their work. I know a lot of people are sitting on the sidelines because they're making more on unemployment right now. So how does somebody get started? What path do you go down?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's so many different ways to have success online, right? And so, and honestly and truly, I've probably tried most of them, and I failed at most of them. But the one thing that really stuck for me was the affiliate marketing route. And so, essentially, what that is once again, the benefit to that is, for me personally, I think that with affiliate marketing, you don't have to create your own product, right? You just have to promote other people's products, right? You don't have to have a huge email list or a huge social following, right? Nobody even needs to know that you're the one advertising, right? The other thing too is you don't need to have a website. So those are a lot of things that people kind of get caught up on. Like, oh, I got to think of a product first, and I got to think about how to create it, and then I have to think about how to service it, and then get customer service, and it's just crazy. It's almost paralysis by analysis for people. And so for me, I think the simpler something is, the more successful you can be with it, and that's why I love affiliate marketing, because it's like, okay, let's take a high converting offer or a product or whatever it is you're promoting that people love to buy. It's already been tested and proven, and just get as many eyeballs to that page as possible by using advertising on things like Facebook and YouTube. And when you do that, and you dial it in, you can really have amazing success. And so, I have several students that are making literally thousands of dollars a day doing it. And they're actually in the position now where they're not even going back to their old 9-to-5 job because, they were either furloughed or laid off. And now they're in a position where they're like, well, I'm making all this money online. Like, why would I go back to working at my regular job? So yeah, but that's the main thing for me personally. And I think the other thing too, Eric, is that it comes down to budget. I think most people, especially with the tough times that's going on right now in our country, people don't have as much extra money to spend on things like this to take the leap on an online business. And so, with affiliate marketing, you can start as little as $20 a day, in my experience, and really have success. And then you basically take that and just reinvest it into bigger and bigger and bigger with your business. And so those are the real big benefits of affiliate marketing. And I've had a ton of success myself personally, and my students are having success too. And I think that's definitely the best and probably the quickest way to get to where you want to be.
So what would you say a realistic investment? We had Kevin Harrington on just the other day, and we were talking about getting into affiliate marketing. As you know, Kevin is an OG from the Shark Tank, right?
Yep.
One of my favorite entrepreneurs that's out there personally for me. He's just inspired me. So we've talked about this. So what's the investment, right? There's a lot of people. I like Kevin's adage where we were talking about people who used to be season ticket holders. Well, obviously, we don't know when we're going to be able to step foot in an arena for sure. Major League Baseball, you might as well just think again. So now people have this extra money, need to invest it into something. So how much would you say to be successful, right? To hit the ground running and really jump into this, would you say an investment that you would need? Like, what's kind of a ballpark figure, would you say?
Yeah, so I always teach my students. I think if you can commit to between $20 to $40 a day to start, you can have a ton of success, right? And obviously, like if you were to just, as long as you go through the process of understanding things first, like having your game plan and then executing, I think that's really important. Unfortunately, I think so many people in the online space and as an entrepreneur, they kind of, it's like fire, ready, aim when it needs to be ready, aim, fire. And so I think that's where it has to be. And so, but honestly and truly, $20 to $40 a day, I've seen so many people be able to kind of parlay that into bigger and bigger success. But yeah, $20 to $40 a day is a perfect start.
Oh, wow. That's easy. That's pretty simple. That's terrific.
Yeah,
that's a good thing. I didn't even know it was that. That seems very affordable for a lot of people out there. You can't say it's a cup of coffee. I know we love saying that. That's what it costs.
Yeah, maybe a cup of coffee for you and your friends.
Coffee for everybody in line at your local coffee place. Exactly. I always love it when we have to compare everything with adages to that. So it's hilarious when people go there. So I mean, this is good insight. I think people can really take away from it. So what's some tips for people who, once they get started, one of the big things I hear is using Facebook ads. People just think hitting that boost button is like a magic button. I mean, if they want to go to you, I mean, what do you recommend? If you're going to jump in and start investigating this, obviously do some research. People need to do research on it. There's a lot of people out there. Trust me, my Facebook looks like one human click funnel, it feels like. Everybody's out there. So where do people go to actually look what they're talking about so they know what you're talking about is, separates you from the crowd? What would you say?
Well, I think, obviously I have a couple of free trainings that I offer that people can go through and kind of see, obviously we only have so much time during this interview, but I go deep in depth on this training and show you how to, have success, the best niches to choose, like which products to look for, how to find them, the best ones that pay out the most. I mean, because if you don't really know those things, you can spend a lot of time and waste a lot of money because there's thousands of products you can promote, but there's only probably a handful that are really, really good and dialed in. But the big thing too, I think honestly and truly is make a decision on what you want to do, right? So I think so many people get that like shiny object syndrome where they're like, oh, I want to try this one, or I want to try this, or I want to do this. Like, stick to one thing and just go narrow and deep on it and just become an expert at it. And if you do that, you can have a ton of success. And so that's what I've done. I've been Facebook all the way, right? I've done YouTube, I've done other stuff, but for me personally, I just find if I go narrow and deep on one thing, I have way more success.
That is outstanding advice. I think that's good. So before you go, tell folks how they can find out more about you and what you're doing. And you mentioned free courses, and I know everyone loves the word free. It's one of our favorite words. I wish my wife would learn what it meant, but and Amazon obviously doesn't know what it's like. It's like when you order things on Amazon and you get the extra stuff that comes with it. You're always like, that's why I'm doing it, because you can go to the store and get one thing, or you order it through Amazon and they throw like 4 other things in. You're like, I'll take that deal.
Absolutely.
It's a better deal. So tell folks how they can connect with you and learn more.
Yeah, so there's 2 main places. So the first place would be going to my website, which is robbyblanchard.com. That's ROBBY and then Blanchard.com. And the second way is through my Commission Hero website, which is called commissionhero.com/training. And when you do that, that's where you're going to get that free training. It's about an hour and a half, and it really goes deep into what I do, how I've had my success, how I went from being that struggling gym owner to where I am now, and how I've helped a lot of people, like literally thousands of people, have success too. So it's definitely good training. So make sure you bring your popcorn and take some notes.
I love it. And final thing, we're starting to ask these to you successful entrepreneur types. Can you list your top 3 books? Everybody likes reading. We all have it. And mainly I do it for myself. I love reading, but I know a lot of other people love to go grab a good book. Been talking about this, how knowledge is power. What's your top 3?
Well, I'll be honest with you, Eric. I don't read too much, to be honest with you. I really don't. But I've somehow managed to have success. But I would say one book that I really, really enjoyed is actually, we've been talking about him quite a bit, is Bedros' book, which is called Man Up. And so that's an amazing book. I've actually known Bedros for a long time. Like when I was just a gym owner, he was one of my inspirations. And he's actually the guy that helped me get into the online space. So I have to give credit where credit's due. And I love that book. It's been awesome. I would say another book that's been great for me is Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill there. And then also I would say Grant Cardone has a great book, which is called Sell or Be Sold. And so that's really been a big thing for me. Learning the psychology of advertising, promoting, and selling has been a game changer for me in my life. Yeah.
Absolutely. I love all 3 of those books. Man Up is one of my favorites. I think I've read that like 3 times now. And not because I'm intimidated by Bedros standing over me doing it. No, just kidding. But it's a great book. Told totally agree with you when you talk about Grant's books. A lot of people are iffy on Grant as a human. I love Grant's books. I think they're amazing. I mean, I don't care about any of the politics on Grant. I love his books because they have made a difference in my life and the things that I do. So I think more and more people should focus on reading those books. Here's a book I'll recommend to you that I just finished, and it's really kind of helped focus and center myself with all this idle time, is a book called The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. Amazing book that it's about a very famous attorney in New York who was making well more money than all of us, had the flat, in Central Park, and gave it all up one day, right? Went and hung out with monks and kind of changed his way, and then came back to that lifestyle, but really humbled himself, got rid of all, proving a point that it's great, we can afford those nice things, and you should. But I know the adage of sending the elevator back down once you reach a certain plateau is popular. But he kind of talks about synergy and how do you do it and making time, like where's your decision making. So I know a lot of people, and I'm kind of ranting here, but I'd love to hear your thoughts before we go. But like guys, people pick on Jocko Willink because Jocko talks about waking up early. And what they're talking about in this book, which I kind of like, right? Because you're like, oh, no wonder SEALs get up early. I'm a Marine. Trust me, we used to get up early. Doesn't mean we liked it. But it's a very true statement. I hated getting up early, and now I get up early. But he talks about where do you want to put your time where you're valuing things, right? Yeah, you want to invest in your business, and it's easy to get caught up in hearing the Gary V's and the Grants of the world telling you to burn that midnight candle. But a lot of us, it's hard. A lot of us have kids and wives and significant others, husbands and parents and COVID-19. So kind of scheduling your time, guaranteeing, like, what if you gave an hour on a Sunday to schedule out your week? So you're like, I'm not going to let people take up space that don't deserve it, or time sucks, which has been, that's the biggest thing I took out of the book, was a time suck. So, I mean, do you deal with that where you're like, I'm not going to let this time suck get a hold of me? Like I took TikTok off my phone, anything that just takes time that doesn't deserve it, or out of the blue phone calls. Unless you're on fire, you're probably not going to get through to me because I can't get on there. I'm on the phone for an hour, and we're usually not talking about work. It's like 5 minutes of work and the rest is like blah, blah, blah. So before you go, what's your thoughts on like time sucks? How do you handle them?
For me personally, I think I kind of live by the, the expression, the main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. And so, so for me personally, I've kind of trained myself to just be like, okay, like, is this going to move my business forward? Is this going to get me towards my goals? If it is, great, then we're going to go ahead and do it. If it's not, then I will not be doing it, or I'll be delegating it out to somebody else. And so, I definitely think that, it's super important to schedule your time. And I love what you said there about, kind of having that 1 hour, in a week where you schedule your week out or whatever. For me, I kind of call it my magic time. And so, I'm not really an early riser. I usually get up around 8 a.m. or so, but you got to find what works for you. And maybe your magic time is, at night. Maybe your magic time's in the morning. But whatever it is, like, just don't fight it. Just go with it, and that's where you're going to have your success. And I think that's the main thing. But for me, I just live by, keep the main thing the main thing.
I love that. That's great. You said a couple things to rehash that I love. Keep the main thing the main thing I love. And you also talked about something we talk about a lot here on our show. Adapt and overcome, obviously, what we call the Marine Corps mindset. Shout out to Lisa Bodenberg, who I love that she coined that, and I've kind of run with it. I've always said adapt and overcome because it's like the Marine Corps thing. But it's so true, and it's good to hear. It's funny hearing successful entrepreneurs taking our mantra and really believing in it. And it's funny how so many people don't, and they've buried their head in the sand over so much. So it's refreshing to hear here you go, folks, another successful entrepreneur showing, my man right here, showing that adapt and overcome is a great mindset to have, and you can't panic. We always talk about panicking. Everybody wants to freak out. You don't freak out. Even when you think the darkest days are upon you, you've got to keep your head up and be positive. So anyways, Robby, I want to thank you so much for joining us. Folks, if you want to connect with Robby, we're going to have it all here in the link, so make sure you're checking it. If you're watching on Facebook, check it out. It'll be in the thread. And if you are a YouTube viewer, just go down into the subject matter of this, and you'll see how to connect with Robby. We'll have all of his social. And if you want to sign up for his amazing courses, I highly recommend it, and you can go do that. And we'll throw in Robby's 3 book recommendations just because. We're going to add those so you can go join it. So thank you, Robby, for joining us today. We appreciate you, my friend.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I'm very humbled and always grateful for having me on here. I really appreciate it. And so hopefully people got some good knowledge.
as we all try to figure out starting our own businesses, with a record number of people trying to become entrepreneurs or wanting to become entrepreneurs, now is the time. As our guest previously talked about, Robby Blanchard talked about, now is the time, especially for e-commerce and affiliate marketing. But what if you don't want to go that route? What if you want to go the route that I came up through, which is startup route? You want to go find a VC or an investor, an angel investor for your Series A or a seed round to help you grow a business. Well, it can be difficult. It's hard to find the right path. It's not as easy as other things where you can simply Google it or watch a YouTube video. You need expert help. You need someone to guide you. And today's guest is that guy. He's going to be able to help you. Bridger Pennington is joining us today to talk about how at his young age, he was able to find investors and what he's doing to help people build their own business by growing capital. So let's welcome and get to the point with Bridger Pennington. Welcome to the show, Bridger. How are you doing today?
Eric, good. How are you doing today?
I am happy to have you here. We're talking about one of my favorite things, money. I love talking about money, and rumor has it you like talking about it too. So.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be a fun conversation today. All about money and funds and all that kind of stuff. So
2020, like I've said, kind of started off like I've said, it's a dumpster fire. I'm hoping the second half of 2020, as thank God we're in July. I hope we have a better end of 2020 than we started with. But I mean, a lot of people are doing well financially. I know saying this with 40 million people unemployed, but so many people have started businesses at home. We've had amazing folks on our show who have talked about it. There's lots of brands that are out there that are absolutely killing it by being work from home. They start their own business. So let's talk about that. So obviously, if you want to go more than just affiliate marketing or one of these direct sales companies, which is great. I'm not knocking them. I think they're great. Shout out Zaya for the shirt I'm wearing today, as always. But so people would come to you, or let's talk. I want to start a business. My background, I'm in the Silicon Valley, so I get it. How do I go? I'm looking at something and I'm like, okay, I want to start a business. I have a business plan. Obviously, it's an important thing to have, is a business plan. I have everything set up. I want to go start my business. I have this idea, but I need investors. SBA is kind of a joke, takes forever. They're focused on these small business loans that they gave out at the beginning of COVID-19. Where does one go? How do you point yourself in the right direction, right your ship, so you go to the right person and not waste your time finding somebody to help you with capital to get your dream up off the ground?
Yeah, that's a great question. I started 7 businesses prior to launching my fund. And like you said, SBA, BizOp types of things, there's lots of vehicles out there. And I finally realized the one vehicle to make the most money in the world one of them was starting a fund. And so to your question of finding capital, it's hard, right? It's hard to go out and find investors for your business, your idea. If the banks aren't going to lend to you, whatever financing you have. And I found out I actually set up a fund myself, went out, pitched investors, got money to that fund. And I used that fund to go invest into actually I run a debt fund. So we do short-term loans for people and done it that way.
That is awesome. I mean, that is just totally cool that you were able to pull that off. I mean, and you did this, if I'm right, you started your fund at age 22?
Yes, yeah. It's kind of a wild story, but I had tried all these business ideas, right? I was doing, some of you guys probably listening have done real estate wholesaling, or I did essential oils or online marketing stuff. And finally, I remember my dad grabbed me by the ears. He's like, "All right, Bridger, you need to go meet with one of my business partners." Because I had a lot of energy, right? I was there, I was doing the work. That wasn't a problem. I just didn't know where I was going, right? I think a lot of people maybe can relate to that. So my dad set up this meeting for me to go meet with one of his business partners. And I'd never been there before. I started to drive up to this guy's beautiful home. And I come up these hills, this gated community, and I pull up and there's this gorgeous white house in front of me. It's just absolutely beautiful. And I parked my car. I kind of double checked the address. Like, is this really it? Like, is this here's my dad's? Because we grew up in a very frugal household. My dad drove a crappy car. I mean, we lived a very average life, and which was great. And I knew my dad was an entrepreneur. I know he did some things in business. And I pulled up this guy's house. I'm like, who is this business partner he has, he must be just crazy wealthy. And I walked up to his door and I knocked on his door. I remember being so nervous. I thought like a butler was going to come kick me off his porch and be like, "Be gone, peasant," you know? And so I knock on this guy's door, and to my surprise, he answered, "Bridger, come on in." He sits me down in these huge white sofas, and we start to talk. And I tell him I've started all these businesses, and they've kind of done okay. I made a little bit of money, haven't made money. It's gone okay. And I finally get to the point, I say, "Well, how did you get all of this? Like, how did you do this? You know, this house and his boat and his car and just this incredible wealth he's created." And he said, "It's funny, actually, not very many people ask me that question." And I go, "Really?" And I would think everybody would ask me that question, but I guess that's kind of rude. I was just young and naive, I guess. And he goes, "Well," he goes, "about a decade ago, I figured out the secrets of the rich, of what the ultra wealthy families of the world do. These are what the Trumps of the world do, the Romneys of the world, if you're going to go political, right? But this is what these wealthy families do. They have their kids. They make sure they go to good universities, and they hope that they get into private equity, venture capital, and hedge funds and can build their family wealth that way." And he said, I didn't even know what a fund was, but we went out and set up a fund, me and your dad, and we currently manage about $8 billion of real estate. And this is a few years ago. And I was like, "Wait, what?" And he goes, "Yeah, we manage about $8 billion of real estate right now inside of our real estate funds." And I was shocked. And I said, "Well, can you teach me more about this? I mean, I'm intrigued. I didn't really know much about the fund space." And he said, "Well, you should go talk to your dad. Your dad knows way more about this than I do." And I said, "Well, you know, you're obviously doing a lot better than my dad. I would love to learn from you." And he goes, "Actually, me and your dad make about the same amount of money." And my jaw about dropped to the floor. I was like, "What?" And so I got in my car. I drove right to my dad's house. I said, "Dad, what the heck? Like, you're making all this money. Like, are you," you know, and he kind of laughs. He goes, "Well, you know, my business partner likes to spend his money. I like to invest my money." And we just live totally different lifestyles. But yeah, we run, you know, this massive real estate fund. At the time, managing $8 billion. And now they're up to till day. He's the $20 billion funds they manage. And so we sat down, we started to talk, and I was like, "Dad, why can't I order a soda when we go out to eat?" And he goes, "Well, you know, I wanted to raise good kids that understood the value of money and didn't want to raise, you know, trust fund babies, I guess." And so we sat down and he started to teach me about how funds worked, how they were structured, how the pieces, how limited partnerships and general partners work together, and registered investment advisors and the documents and the whole 9 yards. And he sat down like a good dad and taught me his trade and his business. And that actually ultimately led me to launch my own funds.
That is incredible. Let me tell you, because I mean, that's one of those life lessons, right? I think, I agree with you. I think it's amazing when your parents raise you in a way where money, you value it more. I mean, I have friends who were raised with a lot of money and they behave that way even now later in life. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't raised that way. And it's something, you know, and having to go through struggles. And my parents could have bailed me out a million times, but they didn't. I mean, we had to figure it out on our own. And I think that's something, what you're talking about is no ego. And I think that's a large part of it. When people look at your industry, you know, bringing funds, you know, they look at you guys as though, I mean, it's funny. It's even made fun of in Billions, right? When you watch such an incredible show, Billions on Showtime, what do they even make fun of there, right? They're like, "Oh my God, the bankers, the funds guys are the ones that you're just like, they have no cares in the world." I mean, that's even what they want to do on the show is open a bank and be able to give folks money. So that's interesting that you bring that up. I think one of the big things is being humble, right? Sounds like your dad's very humble, and clearly by the way that you're presenting yourself, my friend, you're very humble too when you don't have to be, especially with somebody at your age. I mean, I was sitting here and you're like, I'm like 22. What was I doing? 22. Okay, I probably had the same amount of hair I have now, but I was in the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
And when I wasn't doing that, I was drunk. Just being honest, that's where you could find me, is somewhere in Hawaii on a beach. That's what I did at 22. You were making money. I wish I was sitting in your boat at 22, not in the boat I was pedaling around in, or paddling around in with one paddle. So let's talk about this. So when you go out and you want to start a fund, right? Say somebody's sitting here, they've got some money, and they want to go figure out how to start a fund. You have to have some licenses to do this, right? This is not a little tiny amount of money. So let's kind of talk about what kind of licenses you need, where you start that process. This isn't, again, ladies and gentlemen playing at home, Bridger isn't talking about getting rich quick. This isn't a snap of your finger and boom, poof, you're living the life on the big white couches. The licenses kind of go through the process, my friend.
Yeah, so I met with my dad. I'll kind of continue that story just because it plays right into it. I sat with my dad and we started to plan out a fund. And And I was worried about licenses, right? And I didn't have money. You can start a fund without your own capital, right? That's the purpose of a fund. And so I said, well, I don't have any money. And I actually pitched my dad, because I said, my dad's got to have a lot of money. He'd love to invest, right? He likes to invest. I'm his son. He told me he loves this investment. And my dad actually, big tough love moment between me and him. I remember I sat down with him, pitched him, and he just said, I have the money to invest, but I won't invest in your fund. You've got to go learn how to do this on your own. And to this day, my dad's never invested in any of my funds. He's just given me, advice and mentorship, and it's been incredible. And so I went out, pitched investors. At the time, I was worried about licenses, right? And like you mentioned, I asked my dad, what do I got to do for licenses? And he says, and my dad's the chief compliance officer at his funds right now, and he knows the SEC very well. He says, it's interesting. So inside of a fund, and I wish I had like a whiteboard or something to map it out, but there are two different types of fees that get charged in funds typically in two different buckets. There's typically a management fee and a performance fee. So you'll hear like a 2 and 20 fund, right? That means 2% management fee. So if you had a $100 million fund, you'd make 2%, so $2 million off the top. And then if your fund performs over a certain pref or preferred rate of return, so for my funds, it's 8%. So I tell my investors, if I don't make 8% to you first, I don't make anything at all. And then what we do above 8%, we split it 80-20. So 80% to the investor and 20% to me. So if we got a 20% return this year, first 8% would go to the investors, and then anything above 8% to 20%, we would split 80-20. So that's a typical 2 and 20 fund. So there's two fees there. You follow me? Is that kind of making sense?
Oh, yeah.
You got the 2% management fee, K, and then 20% carry. So my dad said, if you don't charge a management fee, you don't need to be licensed. And I was like, what do you mean? He goes, well, if you only charge a performance fee, meaning you as the fund manager don't make any money unless your fund makes over, let's call it 8%, then you don't need to have a management fee to run the fund and advise, because you're not advising the fund. You're making money if the fund makes money in its investments. And now, if you're going to just caveat on that, people listening, if you're going to run a fund that like trades Forex or commodities on the stock market, you need a license to trade. Or if you're going to do commercial real estate, you need a license to do commercial real estate or have a partner that has a license. But on the fund side of things, you actually don't need a license if you don't charge a management fee. So that was like huge to me. So right now I'm on my second fund. We're setting up our third fund here pretty soon. And I do not hold any Series 65, Series 7 license. And we were able to do it because I only make money if the fund performs. If this year our fund got a 6% return, I would make $0. And that plays into my youth of when I pitch investors, that's like the best pitch ever. I tell my investors, I say, guys, I make $0 unless you make at least 8% first. See, these big fund managers, they're going to take their fees and all this kind of stuff. They're going to nickel and dime you because they have this big lifestyle. I'm young. I'm scrappy. My goal is to get my investors the highest return possible because I need to build a name for myself. I'm not 55 years old and need to have a yacht and fly my family to Hawaii twice a year. I don't have that lifestyle yet. I'm young. I can live in a $300 apartment a month and drive a crappy car and still get you guys high returns. And I will only work and I only make money if you make at least 8% back first. And that was my pitch to investors, and they liked it. And I actually have two, by the way, just disclaimer, I'm not pitching I'm not selling securities. I have too many investors to put money in. I've actually turned investors away the last couple months. Because that pitch is so compelling, and our funds have done decently well in the past, and so that's how we got started without licenses. Now in the future, I'll probably go and get a 65 or a Series 63 or a 7, depending on what our exact funds are doing at that time. But for now, I don't have a license, and we have a whole movement and program online, and that's how we have our students are doing the same thing.
That is amazing, and I mean, you make it sound so easy, and I know it's not as easy as you make it sound, but it's good to see. I mean, I think it will encourage folks out there who have it and probably put all this. I know there's so many people who think licenses are everything, and I mean, I get the point of doing it, but sometimes there's ways to get around it. I mean, you can go into insurance offices, even for your car and auto and life insurance, and find people who have probably taken less licensing than you'd think that are taking care of your insurance. So
yeah. And that I never would have learned that unless my dad, I mean, he's so he knows the SEC in and out. And that was incredible. I recognize how lucky I was to be his son and to be, blessed by that. And I just took advantage of it. And I have an incredible dad. And that's kind of the basis of our show and our movement online is, you can get mentored by him and myself and all that kind of stuff is based on that principle. And so we've gone out and been able to start funds and grow them and it's been pretty cool. So now running a fund is not for everybody, right? It's not for, you got to be a certain type of person. Like you said, I'm not selling a quick kind of a thing, right? Get rich quick. Is that how you say it? Get rich quick kind of a thing. But it's an incredible vehicle to make a lot of money. It's not as hard as people think. People have it in their mind, like I've got to go do the investment banking route. I've got to do the consulting route. I've got to go to get a big MBA and work on Wall Street for 20 years before I can even think about running a fund. And there are dozens of people out there running funds like you and me and just have figured out the ways to do it.
That's like, what's his name? David Portnoy from Barstool Sports, right? He's kind of made a rep for himself since COVID-19. Since there's not a lot of sports to report, he's become a day trader, and he's absolutely killing it. I mean, he's all over business news talking about it. And like he says, he's not the brightest bush out there, and he's crushing it. So other people can too. People just need to. I think it takes a little bit of research, and having shows like ours and shows like yours kind of expose how it works. So let me ask you this. Here you are. You're young, my friend. How did you go out and raise this money at such a young age? I mean, to go out and sit in front of these folks, to get them to invest in you and to believe in you, I mean, that took some huevos there, my friend. Some, real, like, I mean, It's hard because a lot of people, again, we go back to what were you doing in your early 20s? Most of us can't say we were following Bridger's path. We were not like, we weren't doing it that way. We weren't sitting down with these people and going, here's what I got for you. Press firmly, make 3 copies and hand me a check. It's a little different world. So how did you go out and do this? How did you go out and raise this money at such a young age and with such confidence? Because that's not, I mean, that's like a self-talk. So it takes a lot.
Yeah. And I was nervous as ever. And the example, this is actually what my dad told me. So I remember I asked my dad the same question. No one will believe in me. No one's going to invest in me. How am I going to do this? He said, Bridger, what if right now, today we found a beautiful Lamborghini in Billings, Montana. I said, okay. And he goes, we've had it checked out by a mechanic and we have somebody in Montana. They're going into bankruptcy. They need to sell this Lamborghini by Saturday for $50,000. They'll take cash. And he's like, just go with me. This is an example. I'm like, all right, everything's checked out. He goes, they're going to sell it for $50,000 on Saturday. And we have a verified buyer in California that'll buy the same Lamborghini for $200,000 on Monday morning. Okay. And it's guaranteed, right? You have the purchase order. I mean, everything's done. All you need to do is go out and find $50,000 and you can't use any of your own money. And he goes, Bridger, do you think you could go find $50,000? And I thought about it for a second. I go, everything's checked out. He goes, everything's checked out. You're going to make $150,000 this weekend if you can go find $50,000. And I thought about it and I thought, well, I could go talk to like a former boss or an aunt or a cousin or a college professor. I said, yeah, I think so. I think I could find $50,000. We're going to make $150,000 this weekend. Yeah, I could find $50,000. He goes, well, what about $100,000? Well, could you find $100,000 this weekend? You're going to make another $100,000, and when you sell it on Monday morning, and you have to obviously split that with your investor, but could you find $100,000 by this Saturday? And I was kind of like, yeah. And he goes, why? And I go, well, the deal is so good. It's foolproof, right? We're going to make money. And he goes, aha, there it is. See, 3 minutes ago, you were all stressed out and worried. Oh my gosh, I can't raise money. No one will invest in me. And all of a sudden, you're telling me that you feel confident going and raising $100,000 by this weekend. And he goes, the point is the deal was so good. You were so confident in your investment because it was guaranteed that the money found you. And he goes, the biggest problem with most people trying to raise money and go pitch investors is they don't truly believe it's a good enough investment inside to go and beat down every single door. And that was the kind of the first step my dad told me. I call it the fund launch formula. The formula that helped launch funds was to go out and find that amazing deal, find that house to go flip. I know a couple of guys that all they do, their entire fund, they go out and buy and sell almond farms. There's other funds I know that all they do is buy and sell Amazon businesses. I have one friend, he goes and buys mom and pop funeral homes. He groups them together, a dozen or so, and he found if the grouping together that process, he can sell it for double on the market to a public, like a bigger private equity firm or a bigger firm. And the deal is so good that money finds him. There is not, so the first, like, so I talked to a friend, quick story. I have a friend that lives nearby me, and he was setting up a fund for real estate, and he goes, man, and I'm in Utah. I'm in Salt Lake City, Utah, of all places, right? Like, you would never think there would be any capital in Utah. And he goes, man, I think I've tapped out all the money in Utah. And he had raised about $800,000 for his deal. And he's like, yeah, there's no more money in Utah. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he goes, yeah, I think we've tapped it all out. And I go, you know, the firm Album VC down the road, they just raised $120 million in 45 days from just Utah investors. And he's like, what? And I go, yeah, my dad's funds, Bridge Investment Group, they are in Utah as well. They've raised money. And I was like, what are you talking about, right? Some people just believe there's no money around them because they watch Instagram and they theorize if my neighbors and people aren't driving Lamborghinis, there's just no one with money then, right? There are plenty of people around you that are like my dad, right? That live the millionaire next door kind of lifestyle, that have millions in the bank, they don't want to be flashy and showy. They just live a normal lifestyle. And so anyways, that was the first thing I had to get past myself. Like, there's people with money and people looking for yield. They're looking for good investments. And then secondly, you asked previously, right, how did I do that, right, at a young age, right? How did that pitch go? And sorry if I'm getting long-winded. You can cut me off whenever. But
you're good, man.
I would go into a boardroom. So I was talking to everybody, right? Because I believe my deal was so good. So I was talking to former employers, boss, I have aunts, and I said, if you have a friend of a friend, I'd love to go meet with them. If you have an active investor, I would use my young age to my advantage. I would find guys, because at every school, there's people that love to mentor college kids. And I would say, hey, I've got this new fund. Can you just look through my pitch and give me some review on my pitch? And we would sit down and I would give them my whole pitch and I would ask for feedback. And sometimes they'd give me very good feedback. And the other times I'd say, well, in all honesty, would you invest in this deal? And they're mentoring me now, but now they've turned into an investor, right? But every time I sat down with a pitch, and same with those other pitches, I would always stop them. And I would say, okay, the mid pitch, I just go, okay, we got to stop right here. I know you think I am way too young to be sitting in front of you right now and pitching you this investment. And 9 times out of 10, they'd kind of nod their head like, yep, you're exactly right. And I would go, because I'm young, that gives me an advantage over other people. And I mentioned this earlier, is I would say, I am not going to take a management fee. I only make money if you make an 8% pref. If I was 50 years old, I would want to be taking management fees and nickel and diming you. I'm not going to do that. Because I'm young, I'm scrappy, I can work harder, I can stay up late. I don't have this lifestyle. I don't have a reason to commit fraud on this deal. If I was living this big lifestyle and had big car payments and a big house and I have to make those payments every month and tax bills with the IRS, I might be incentivized to commit fraud. I'm young. I live in a small house. My car is paid off. I have no reason to commit fraud. I can work harder than other people, and I'm not going to take a management fee. My goal for this first fund is not for me to make money. I want to make you as much money as possible so you will go tell all your friends about how amazing an investment you've given me. And they would go, okay, and they would say, well, and I say, guys, I don't expect you to pull out your pocketbook and give me the biggest check ever. I want you to give me a trial investment, something you're comfortable with, a trial investment, and I'm going to knock your socks off in 6 months. And 6 months from now, you're going to be beating down my door to put in double or even triple that initial investment. And they'd say, wow, this kid's got a lot of confidence. Yeah, I'll write him and they'd write me $25,000 checks, $50,000 checks. These were small checks, but I would take them. And our fund was doing very well. I'd turn those checks and I'm not going to tell you exact results on here for, disclaimers. We were doing very well. And 6 months down the road, they're, Bridger, can I put more money in? What's your capacity? And they were telling their friends, and that's kind of how I grew our investor base and continually growing our investor base. So, but it was knocking a lot of doors, kissing a lot of frogs, like they say, right?
I love that. That's very true. And I love that you guys come on our show. We get you folks that are successful and talk about the journey, because far too often you could turn on social media or watch a TV show and people think, oh, it's easy, or this person's going to help me because they're running an ad on Facebook, but have no background in it, and they took they took a course or read a Gary Vee book, and suddenly they're experts in everything under the sun from investing and everything else. And that's not true. I mean, even that's one thing I love about Gary Vee is where if you ever have seen him speak, Gary's like, dude, this isn't how this works. This isn't not the way it works. You got to be yourself. It's not an overnight success thing, and it takes time. People have to believe in you, and you have to find I think what I liked about what you just shared is you found your way to stick out in a crowd, right? Storytelling, story yelling there's a big difference between the two, and you're right. The older cats get stuck in their ways. They're like, I don't work on Mondays. I don't work on Fridays. I work 3 days a week. This is I golf on these other days, yada, yada, yada. And you're like, look, I'm young. I got the chutzpah to go get this done. I'm going to go get it done. I mean, and you're not living this crazy lavish lifestyle. I think a lot of people need to see that because I had the honor to speak with Steve Blanks, right? Who is the, billionaire whisperer to so many companies in the Silicon Valley. And I remember he pulled up to this conference that we were doing media for. He was driving a beat up Honda Accord, right? Here's a guy who's a billionaire. And he walks in and he sits down for an interview with a large publication. And they ask him that question. He's like, look, just because I drive this car, why does that mean I don't have money? Is it a perception that because I make a lot of money, I need to go waste money? Well, I wouldn't do that. I have other things I'd rather put my money into. And that's why the companies I work with are so successful. And I was like, oh my God, he just mic dropped. You don't have to do it. I mean, you look at guys like even Guy Kawasaki, who's done very well, one of the original Apple employees. He doesn't drive around in fancy cars. I mean, he has a cool deal because he has a large car manufacturer, lets him borrow or test drive cars.
Yeah, Warren Buffett's the same way, right? Warren Buffett drives his beat up, and lives that simple lifestyle. And it's funny that you see very good investors will live that very conservative lifestyle traditionally, right?
I mean, even guys like Mark Cuban and a lot of the sharks, you don't see the fancy lifestyle. I mean, we recently had Kevin Harrington on our show. And, here's a guy who invests in a lot of things. And he invested in an amazing company called RoofMax. And it does with roofing. So it's not a sexy thing, right? Everybody says they look at these folks, especially sharks, right? As, they're always investing. But their businesses, the true ones that make them money, aren't the sexy ones. It's the simple things. If you look at like Mr. Wonderful and Mark Cuban, they invested in a company called Bottle Breacher, which takes old bullets and turns them into bottle openers, right? Simple company, but it happens to be one of Mr. Wonderful's top 5 investments ever. It's crazy, right? But
wow. Yeah,
I mean, obviously we all know the difference. So let me ask you this in closing. I think people want to know how you build a track record, right? You are young. So the advantage the older folks have over you is a track record, right? When you're, I always compare it to teams comparing themselves to the New York Yankees, right? One of the best teams in baseball, not basketball at all. I didn't know the difference. I'm a huge fan. But comparing yourself as a new team, like the Tampa Bay Rays or somebody who's a smaller size market, smaller size team, they have the reputation. I mean, kind of like the Lakers. If you're a basketball fan, I pick on you because you're in Salt Lake and I'm a Blazer fan here in Portland. So
there you go. Yeah,
there's got to be a little, but we both kind of look at the Golden State Warriors or the Lakers as the big dog in the room, and our small market teams are disrespected.
Yep.
Huge audiences. I mean, you guys went to back-to-back NBA finals only to run into a guy named Michael Jordan, which, well, I don't think anybody could beat that man. I think like him and God have a deal, and he was like, dude, I'm really good at basketball.
You're just pulling out all the bad Jazz memories we got right here. Yeah.
I'm not blaming you guys for COVID-19. I'm not.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, but hey, I got mad love for Spider Mitchell. I do like your Jazz team. If they weren't in the same target audience as my Blazers. But
I know we have a good rivalry with you and Dame Lillard, and man, it's fun. So
love my man Dame. I'm glad we gave Dame a shout out. It's good we can talk about basketball, but a lot of these younger teams. I mean, even the Blazers. I mean, if I like to put things into sports adages, you have to have a good track record. And I think both organizations, if you put the Blazers and the Jazz, they've both been to NBA finals. They're both top 10 teams. They're both always in the playoffs. They don't always get to face each other, but it's a healthy rivalry. But there's the bigger dogs on the block who have already accomplished themselves, and when they walk into the room, you're just like, holy crap, right? When LeBron James and the Lakers walks into an arena, all of a sudden you're like, holy crap, where did all our fans go? Why are they all wearing 23 jerseys?
Yeah.
And they're suddenly Laker fans. Or, except for this season, the last 7 seasons have been filled with people wearing beautiful Golden State Warrior jerseys. Mad love for Steph Curry and Clay, and that entire Steve Kerr has built an amazing team. By the way, former Trailblazer, and a winning Chicago Bull. As much as I hate the Warriors, I love them. I'll give them that for talent. But how do you separate yourself with your track record? How do you like, look, yeah, I may be younger, and yeah, you explain that you're hungrier, but how do you show your track record currently could be better than these guys who've had years on you?
Yeah, excellent question. And to be honest, I don't. Well, I'll just tell you how I think the easiest way for guys like us to get started. Guys that didn't go to Wall Street or have the crazy Ivy League, I call it the crutch to lean on. Guys like us that are just entrepreneurs and get things done, is there's two different, I call them all funds, but there's a syndication type of fund, or I call it syndication loop, and then the full-on fund model. So for example, I think house flippers are some of the best people on the planet to go out and to essentially build a track record. And that's what I did for my first fund. Was I found it first off a great deal. I found this amazing deal. I framed it out. I pitched investors. I didn't do the legal docs first. I waited till the end to do legal docs. And I set up a simple LLC. It wasn't a fund. I set up an LLC. We were all partners in the LLC. So I said, hey, for setting up the deal and finding it and doing all the work, I'm going to retain 15% equity. And 85% equity is available pro rata how much money you put in. So if you put in half the money, you get half of the 85% available. And we all are partners on an LLC. We go out and we buy the almond farms. We flip the Amazon business. We do the real estate deal. For me, it was doing debt funds. We were doing loans. And then you go out, you liquidate that partnership. Everyone gets paid, and then you restart. And I think house flippers are some of the best people on the planet at this. They go find a house, they pitch investors, they got to renegotiate every time, set up a new LLC or an entity. The investors put money in, and they go through and they pay everybody out. And so I call them, they're syndication deals, and they're a great way to get started. My first fund that I call a fund was actually a syndication deal. So we did this simple syndication loop. I did a couple loans. I paid my investors back. And on that first one, they got a 64% return. And they were like, holy crap, this is amazing, right? And so I said, now, instead of every time we want to do more deals, setting up new LLCs and have this whole hamster wheel, what you can do with a fund, and why most people end up using a fund to scale, is you can set it up once and you can do as many deals as you want. So we went up, set up our fund, which a little bit more money in legal docs, a little more structure. We set up a general partner, limited partnership structure. I won't dive into all that kind of stuff, but we set up the fund. And from there, we've been able to do over 200 deals in that fund. So imagine, I had a buddy, he's flipped over 300 houses just with his team and stuff. And he does this. He does the syndication every single time. And I was like, man, isn't that tiring? He goes, yes. He goes, every time I have an investor, they want to renegotiate or put different money in, or they're going to pull money out this time. It's just this incredible, like every deal is just so much work. And I finally said, why don't you scale with a fund? And he goes, actually, we're doing that right now. And he had a big investor coming in. They set up a fund, and now he can flip as many homes as he wants. He does, I think, 30 homes, 35 homes a year under one roof, or not one investor, but a handful of investors in one pool that he can draw from. And so the way to build a track record is, for me, it was doing a syndication deals and doing these small syndication deals, and then eventually using that as my track record to scale into a full-on fund model. And usually a lot of fund guys will say, your first fund, your first syndication deal is not meant to make you money. As much as you want to go out and make $1 billion in your first fund, it's not going to happen usually. Your first fund is to build a track record for yourself, to give your investors a high return, give them more money, make them really happy, and then open up fund 2. And then usually they say by fund 3 is when you make the really big money in the fund world. And a lot of these funds, they'll stack. They'll go fund 1, fund 2, 3, 4, and they're on fund 8, 9, 10, whatever, these big firms. That's where you make the huge money, is because your funds build upon one another over time. And it gives you confidence in your funds as well. It gives you the confidence to go out and say, you know what, we could, instead of just doing 2 house flips a year, we could do 30 or 50 house flips. Or this model can be put through a scale. Funds, all it is, is a way to scale your business. If you have one hot dog stand and believe you can manage 100 hot dog stands, and the only thing stopping you is money, a fund is a beautiful vehicle to raise that money and scale. So that's how I was able to build my track record. I set up a syndication deal, and then I launched it into my first official fund. And I've seen a lot of people do a similar model. People that like us that are just starting out. We didn't go to Harvard. We didn't do the whole Wall Street route, that are scrappy. That's how we've got to do it.
I love it.
Yep.
That's solid. I mean, I love hearing that, because I think that's what people have to remember is, you could have a fancy degree on your wall, but it's just a piece of paper. I remember that's what, I've always been told, and that doesn't always mean very much. At the end of the day, it's how your experience and what you deliver upon for your clients and how they recommend you. Referral is everything. I mean, we own an agency that is 100% based on referrals. We've never run an ad. We've never had to. We just go off of word of mouth. I mean, it's just part of our business. Obviously, people are going to say whatever they're going to say. I just think being business owners, people are going to say whatever they're going to say, like you, hate you. It's just part of business. I think that's one of the biggest things that I've learned running a business after working in corporate America, after coming from the military, is thick skin, right? Because people are always going to be throwing rocks at your success. The higher up you go up in the pole, the more people want to chuck rocks at you, and you just got to be like, whatever. I know what I do.
Well,
I put my head down.
The beautiful thing about that, though, is we're in the game, right? There's plenty of people on the sidelines. They're the peanut gallery. They love to make fun. They love to poke, but we're the ones at the plate swinging the bat.
Yep.
And yeah, we're going to strike out a couple times, but maybe we're going to hit some singles and some doubles, and maybe eventually we're going to hit one over the fence, right? But at least we're in the game, and that's the best part I love about entrepreneurship and your show and what you talk about is getting in the game, getting off the sideline, getting out of the peanut gallery and getting into the game. I think it gives you thick skin and you build up, but you're the one swinging away, and it's a fun place to be, especially in America right now in 2020, in this time of the world. I mean, you think back to the dark ages, right? It's pretty hard to start a business. I don't think it's ever been easier to start a business than right now. There's so many benefits and tax incentives and just so many things for small business owners to get started. It's fun to get in the game and to get going.
Absolutely. So, Bridger, I love you being on the show, man. We got to have you back on soon. I love getting into the weeds and talking about, entrepreneurship, how you build something, especially at your age, man. It's amazing because, millennials get crapped on all the time for not being good workers. And everyone I seem to meet with and chat with, y'all are killing it. And I'm like, dude, how can I could never say another mean thing about a millennial because you all have done more than I ever did at your guys' age. So hats off, tip of the cap to you, my friend. Before you go, tell folks how they can get a hold of you and learn more.
Yeah, I have a podcast as well. Program is called Investment Fund Secrets, where we talk more about funds, and I try to bring on fund managers and expose this world, right? Just this secret world of finance. So Investment Fund Secrets, what it's called. If you have questions, hit me up on Instagram, Bridger_Pennington. I try to respond to all those right now. So we'll see how long that goes. But right now, send me a video or send me a chat and I'll get back to you. So I like hearing what people think about funds, where they're at, because it's just a new realm. Not very many people have thought about launching their own fund. And I never would have without an incredible father and mentor. And so we've tried to bring in incredible fund managers that all never used Wall Street, didn't use the Ivy League crutch, or just entrepreneurs like me and you and have done it. So yeah, anyways, that's where you can find us and learn more and hear more. So Eric, thank you so much for having me on.
Okay, man.
Jeez, it's been a pleasure.
It's awesome having you on, Bridger. Seriously, I'm a huge fan. You won me over completely. I was like, oh, great. I'm going to have some young guy on the show. He's going to tell me he's made all this money. He's probably going to reek of ego. And you delivered completely opposite. So you never know. I mean, I interview a lot of people and their ego can come across in many different ways. And it's funny, the people who usually haven't made it have really big egos, and the people who have made it, they're like humble as all get out. They're like, look, I'm here to grind and work hard, understand the struggle. And it's not all flash and dash, and it's not overnight. I think, overnight success is a cliche. I don't think a lot of people actually it happens. I'm a 7-year success is what I always say is it takes time to be successful. So it's awesome to see your success story. You're always welcome back here at To The Point. And so everybody, big shout out to Bridger. Go connect with him on social. Give him a high five, a virtual or elbow bump, whatever we're required to do for COVID.
Yeah.
And thanks again for joining our show. And we'll be right back, folks, to close out today. And that is To The Point Tuesday. It's been a great show. I want to thank our two guests today, Robby and Bridger, for joining us. It's been great. We learned a lot, which is important. And I know there were some issues with Bridger's video, but the audio was money. So hopefully you were able to get by that and actually take some great notes, because I definitely think you can learn a few things from him. Besides his amazing hair, and his beard game is better than mine, and I'm like twice his age. Anyways, we want to thank you guys for showing up today and viewing like you do every day. We can't thank you enough for your support of sharing our show and tuning in every day to watch our show. So tell us what you think. You can email us if you have somebody that you think would be an amazing guest, or you just want to give us some feedback or constructive criticism. You can always slide into our DMs, but the best way and fastest way, if you have somebody that either you or someone you know would be a perfect guest for our show, email us at tothepoint, or actually it's hello@tothepointtv.com. That's right, hello@tothepointtv.com. That'll get you there. And remember to follow us on social media. You can follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, just about anywhere. We're there. And of course, YouTube. And you know what to do there. We want you to smash that subscribe button, hit the notification, and like this. Make sure you're doing that so you never miss a segment. That way, if you have a busy day and you can't catch us live at 9 a.m. Pacific and 12 p.m. Eastern, you can always find us on Facebook or on YouTube, where every episode is. Make sure to tune into our YouTube. You can find exciting things there. Follow us on Instagram. We are building up our stories, and you don't want to miss that. We are going to start having some sponsor takeovers and other amazing things, and you want to be part of that. So again, we want to thank you so much for joining us today. We have a heck of a show for you tomorrow on Women Wednesday. We can't wait to share our guest with you. Check in later today on our Instagram when we announce tomorrow's guest. That's how it works around here. We're so fancy. So I want to say again, on behalf of our team, thank you guys so much. And as always, I'm your host, Eric Mitchell. Be safe, be strong, be smart, and God bless America.
Let's get to the point with Eric Mitchell. Let's get to the point with Eric Mitchell. We gon' talk about sports and the politics. You gon' hear what you've been needing in